Thank you. I am deeply honored by this award, and I'm grateful to the Alliance for Aging Research and to Endo Pharmaceuticals for their support of the award. I have to say, it is an honor just to stand before so many of the nation's leaders in health and healthcare. As Brian mentioned, I've had the privilege of directing the Stanford Center on Longevity since its founding nearly 10 years ago. Our mission since that time has been to redesign long life. Our premise is that these 30 extra years of life expectancy were added so fast that culture hasn't had time to catch up. And by culture, I'm not referring only to the languages that people speak and the foods that they prefer, but rather the crucible that holds science and technology, broad behavioral practices and social norms that take us through life. Our analysis is that that culture that is guiding us through life is one that evolved around lives half as long. Our aim at Stanford is to create a world where the majority of people can arrive at old age mentally sharp, physically fit, and financially secure. At that point, we can begin to change the conversation from one about old age and a crisis on the horizon to one about long life and new opportunities. Now, I can only accept an award for the Sightlines Project on behalf of many of my colleagues, esteemed advisors, and staff who worked on this report. I have to thank NIA for providing the research that was the basis of the research and the report in almost every case. Bank of America was the lead corporate sponsor, providing us resources that we needed in order to pursue the project. Time magazine became a partner in covering the findings and highlighting them. And Peter Hart Associates conducted a survey at the same time we were generating findings for the report to assess Americans' current perspectives on the kinds of findings that we were mining from the large longitudinal data sets. I have to give a particular thank you to Jim Johnson, who chairs our amazing advisory council, for his unfailing support, his sage advice, and amazing judgment. I would not be standing here today if it were not for him. And there are two council members who I have to give a special thank you to, and dare say favorites on our council. Linda Tarplin, who is here, and Vicki Sant. Because the Sightlines Project was born at a lunch in this fine city in early 2014. We were having lunch together and we were talking about the need to shift our attention away from an exclusive focus on old people to younger people as they age, and the kinds of behavioral practices that they were engaging them that we know shape these outcomes in later life. And we talked about this basic human limitation in our ability to be able to look into the long term, to project into the futures, and to connect with our future selves and the future population in the country in a way that we care about viscerally. We began to envision generating a profile of the 80-year-old millennial. What does that person look like, for better or for worse? How can we avoid that kind of Groundhog Day phenomenon of every generation arriving at old age saying, wow, if only I'd taken better care of myself? We need to provide instruments that are accessible to the broad public that will help people begin to realize that they're living for a very long time and that there are many known factors that will affect their odds of living longer lives well or not. So we began this project with Brian described to you, where we mined existing ongoing data sets, and we created this comparison not only of different age groups, comparing 25 to 34-year-olds to people over 75, but we also, in the report, compare 25 to 34-year-olds on this array of variables to 25 to 34-year-olds 20 years ago, 10 years ago, to see if we can create a kind of a dynamic snapshot of whether we're on the right track or the wrong track. Now, one of my favorite findings coming from this project actually came from the survey that Peter Hart conducted, where he asked, would you like to live to be 100 if you could do so in relatively good health? And more than 75% of Americans say yes. American optimism is really something. But in other questions in the survey, he asked if people were exercising, if they were saving for their financial futures, if they were maintaining strong connections to others. And there, only the minority of Americans say that they're engaging in those kinds of behaviors. Our intention is to release this report every 5 years to begin to monitor how we're doing on the right track, wrong track. And the intervening years, we'll do deep dives on particular variables on social engagement, financial security, physical fitness. Our hope is that we can participate in an effort that so many of you are really leading, that will help us prepare for long lives so that aging societies can be the best societies that we have ever known. Thank you for this award. I value it tremendously. Thank you.